Sydney keep their season alive with an absolute mammoth victory over Carlton at the SCG on a slippery, slimy Friday night of footy, where Sydney really came back to their Bloods culture, which probably isn't the best for fantasy given Bice and Roberts are in most teams' backline and they look absolutely shot at the moment comparative to most other players. So we may be looking at a potential upgrade in that line this week on both platforms. But before we jump into it, remember to like and subscribe, turn the notification bell on so you know when I upload, and let's get into this video. So Isaac Heaney was so inaccurate, and that's probably what caused him to not have a 160 game in SuperCoach and a 140 game in fantasy. He ended up with 38 touches, 2 marks, 1 tackle, 2 goals, 5 for the 122-138 split, and that just could have been an absolute mammoth game if he actually kicked the ball with some efficiency. Chad Warner is absolutely back to his best, 2 goals and 30 touches. This is the first time for Sydney this year that they've had a midfielder go over 28 touches in a game, and only the second and third time that a midfielder has gone over 26 touches in a game this year for Sydney, and both of them happened in this game. So just shows to me that there was definitely a flip in the Swans with their ball use, and that it mostly resulted in them having a lot less marks. You see that they were minus 38 on their marks for the season, and also minus 38 on their marks from last week, and then also plus 21 tackles, which is a huge dynamic shift. And you could just see it with Lloyd, McInerney, as well as Roberts really not getting the ball, and even Bice as well, only the 11 touches. So there's a real concern there that those guys are just not going to be able to put up the monster numbers. They're going to be restricted back to their 80s or so, given that Nick Blakey basically did nothing for 3 quarters, had 6 touches for 3 quarters, and did nothing. So there is a massive concern now, I reckon, with Swans players. Caden Cleary's in that half-forward role that's not going to really score that well. So, and there's also returning players, but then at the same time, there's also players just getting suspended left, right, and center. So there's that big watch there. So Isaac Heaney and Brodie Grundy, alongside Chad Warner, were easily Swans' best 3 on the ground. I felt like closely followed by McCartan and Wicks, but they were easily the Swans' best 3. Brodie Grundy was, although in the first quarter, I felt like he was still winning the ball. It just wasn't going to the Swans' mids at first. So they did concede a couple of goals off of taps. But in the end, it just was bound to sort of flip. It was bound that they were going to have a couple of hit-outs to advantage that they were able to take advantage of. And Sydney, I think, went -2 on scores from centre bounce. Won the centre bounce, but lost the stoppage game scores by like 2. But they were able to break it even. And the good thing about that was that they smacked them in transition. They won in transition by like 20, 30 points. And so that's where the big game was had, and that's how they manufactured a win. And also, I think the good thing for them is that they won whilst also kicking inaccurately. They could have easily blown this game open and could have easily had Isaac Heaney kick 2 goals, 5. Joel Amartey kicked 2 goals, 3. If either of those two, they kick 4 goals, 8 between them. If they kick 8 goals, 4, that's another 20 points, and this is 98-62 with a goal after the siren for Carlton. So in the end, it's a 36-point, it would potentially be a 36-point win rather than, what was it in the end, 16 points. And I did tip Sydney by 13, so pretty happy with that tip in the end. Jake Lloyd, I'm happy that he didn't get too much of the ball. Probably still a little bit too much of the ball from him, and he does still stop the play. So I would like to see him potentially just get a freshen up. Maybe just liven him up from the sub bench for 1 game, something like that. McInerney looks all but set for a 1-game suspension. He is, that's his 2nd suspension for a bump this year. So, yeah, he's not had the best year. His ball use was definitely better, but still made some clumsy errors. And then Sam Wicks, about the only thing he's done wrong this year is he can't kick a goal. He's had, I think, 2 or 3 shots and missed them all. But, yeah, he has been outstanding for a guy that wasn't going to be basically on the Swans list next year if he was playing at the that full forward, pressure forward role. For him to go back into the back line, change positions, and go from basically about 30th or 35th on the Swans sort of best player, I would say, to basically top 5 or 6 is kind of crazy. He's probably top 5 in the best and fairest at the moment for Sydney, just with how well he's done. I don't think Motlop kicked a goal, and I think he's probably only conceded 7 or 8 goals this year across the game. So I'd have to double check that, and it's quite hard to do with direct opponents, etc. But I'm pretty sure he's blanketed quite a lot of players in the last couple of weeks. Sheldrick had an amazing first half, but I know some people will be saying that he wasn't used in the last quarter. It was basically under, or at least the assumption I have, and this I think shows in terms of if you look at his TOG in the first half, it basically happened that Isaac Heaney and Chad Warner in the second half, because I think he had 59% and 44% in terms of TOG. I think it just so happened that those two were going electric in Heaney and Warner that you couldn't pull them. You couldn't put them onto the bench, and that's why they had 86 and 87% TOG. Those two in Heaney and Warner. And that's the reason why the spare midfielder and Sheldrick just had to basically sit on the bench. So, yeah, that's why I think that happened in the end. Probably would have liked to have seen him potentially play as a small pressure forward in that time, just because he'd still be in and around the ground. He'd be that extra midfielder, etc. on the ground. But you can't sort of fault it when Heaney and Warner just go blitzing it in the second half. But definitely showed that he's a guy that will score. He will score heavily, and he's gonna have that game sometime soon where he has a full game, like 70, 80% TOG, and just goes off and electric, and could see him average. I could see him have a 30 touch game sometime soon. Roberts, and this is the big worry about the halfback flankers for Sydney. I just don't know if he's going to get enough ball, so I wonder if there's a potential upgrade there with him and Bice next week. Grab some cash, flick back to only having Zach Reed on the bench, and then basically, on field for the rookies in the back line, and then basically having your back line pretty much set already, and then just going for midfielders, etc. after that. That's what I could potentially be doing. Roberts, we talked about. Rowbottom just puts in this effort every time. Braden Campbell had a really impactful game. I think a lot of people talk negatively about him because he has only 15 touches a game, but that was one of the best 15 touch, 6 tackle in a goal game. He also kicked a really important goal. Carlton had just kicked back to get it within a goal, and then Braden Campbell immediately out of the stoppage. It was a little bit fumbly, but Sydney got the tap, Sydney got the clearance, it bumbled towards half forward, and then from about 55 metres out, Braden Campbell clean hands, like he was clean pretty much the whole of last night, and he was just able to, I think, step through 2 Carlton tacklers that were pretty faint, and then just able to slot it from 35 out in the end. Hayward, all right, but not the greatest. But again, 18 touches for Hayward was actually all right, comparative to what we've seen in the past. And then Riley Bice pretty much copy-paste the same description with Roberts, and that's why I'm looking at potentially moving him on as well. And then you got James Jordan tagged Sammy Walsh. Ollie Florence sub, and he looked a lot better coming off the sub, but still off the bench, but wasn't perfect. And then Peter Adams tried to bring football back to footy, and it didn't work. He kicked it behind. Caden Cleary was... he's just not in that role yet. That's going to go extremely well because Sheldrick is there now. So I just wonder, in the end, how long is it going to take him to get those midfield minutes and really start to sort of generate as a really good on-baller? Because he had 14 touches in the end, 2 tackles, but it's just not fantasy relevant. But the development is there, and he's way too good for VFL, so you almost just need to have him. Corey Warner, I thought it was a little bit wasteful with his ball use, and then you have the keys there. And then you get down to Carlton, Adam Chera, not Adam Cripps. Adam and Paddy, they both stood up for Carlton, and that was about it for them, to be honest with you. Chera had an absolute mega game with 34 touches, 20 contested possessions, but in the end, did it really matter? No. Because, yeah, their ball use compared to the Swans players, I mean, if you look at the Chad Warner and Isaac Heaney, they had 30 and 38, whereas Cripps and Chera had 34 and 26, but they kicked 2 more goals, had 7 more shots. They also just were able to have 13 clearances to 9. The clearance battle was Sydney won decisively. And and the hit-outs to advantage. Brody Grundy won the ruck battle, and that flipped the game is when they started to get their hands on first use. I was even talking to Pommy about this as well, and yeah, sort of agreed that there was a lot of things about Carlton that are good. The problem is that they just couldn't get their hands on it first use after about quarter time, and their sort of role players aren't as good as Sydney, and that's the sad part about it for Carlton's sake. You know, I'm taking Caden Cleary over Will White. I'm probably taking like Riley Bice over Jordan Boyd. I'm taking Corey Warner over almost Jesse Motlop. Can we just say Sammy Weeks absolutely trounced Jesse Motlop as well in that game? But having said that, Chera, it would suck if those who traded, because it looked like he was done for the year, done his job. But again, the annoyance of trading out a guy who's just come back and just trounced a game is really annoying. Paddy Cripps looks back to his best. Georgie Hewitt, not really a good game from him, even though it looks like a good game. I thought he was really had some really bad errors. Harry Mackay got on it early, but then basically did nothing after quarter time. Pito was pretty good in the first quarter, but then did nothing after quarter time. Got dominated by Brody Grundy. Charlie Curnow, I actually thought, even though he kicked 3, I thought Tom McCartan actually won the matchup, because Tom McCartan, some of the goals from Curnow were brilliant pieces of play, just and everything. But I thought that Tommy McCartan was able to hold up Curnow and not let him blow the game open. And so then there's that. Sammy Walsh shouldn't... is just absolutely horrific when he gets tagged. Elijah Hollands, I thought, was really poor alongside his brother Ollie. They both had absolutely not pathetic games, but just not impactful. I'd rather take, even at this point, Braden Campbell's 15 touch, 6 tackle, 1 goal game over Elijah Holland's 20 touch game. And then you've got, other guys here. Nick Haynes had a pretty good game as well. And then you go down to even Jacob Wittering. A lot of people were chatting that Joel Hamling is useless, but if you actually look at the underlying numbers for Wittering's usual impact, he was well down. I don't even think he had an intercept. How many intercepts did he have for what he's used to? If we go down here and we go down here as well, and we go to intercept possessions, Jacob Wittering at 5. Let's see what he usually averages for his let's go key stats. Let's go defense, maybe that might have it. Defensive spoils, contested, it's pressure acts, tackles. No, maybe marks might have it. Contested intercept marks as well. He's averaging 3.1 intercept marks. If we look at possessions, maybe intercept possessions, he is averaging 7.6 intercept possessions, and he's just had 5 intercept possessions. If we also look at the other numbers here for a second and look at the other numbers, like the contested marks, the intercept marks, etc. Let's just go down here, contested marks, intercept marks, and go down. You will see that whereas Jacob Wittering had none of each. None of each when he averages, if we go to marks again, he averages 1.6 contested marks and 3.1 intercept marks per game, and he had 0. That's a huge influence from Joel Hamling, who also kicked a goal as well. And then Matty Carroll, just annoying that he's just not getting the sort of cash generation, and sort of defines my season just picking the wrong rookies from the start, not getting the cash generation, and it's really just halted me. I basically picked probably 10 5 bad players, somewhere around that. Not even that many off. And it's just, the difference is so stark. But anyway, that is the video. They're going through Sydney versus Carlton. Sydney keep their season alive. Need to just keep on winning at this point, because if they lose another one to anyone that isn't basically a favourite to win it all, that of like Brisbane or like a Collingwood or a Geelong, etc. If they keep winning outside of those guys, then they're pretty much a shot to somehow make the 8 at this point. Still, they pretty much have about 4 games that they can drop for the rest of the year out of, I think it's something like 12 to go, 13 to go. So they can go basically 9-4 and still make finals, it looks like. But it's a tall ask from there. But anyway, I will see you guys in tomorrow's video, which will be about all of the Saturday games. You've got the 4 Saturday games that we'll go through tomorrow. Bye, guys.